Welcome to the Mundus Fractura Lore Guide. This week on Lore Guide, we will take a look at the Cackling Mass. Tucked in the foot mountains of the NARRATION, breathless peaks, shrouded in the noxious green haze, rising from lowland industries, the orcs of the Cackling Mass seethe. Uncountable small bands of hideously deformed, snarl-toothed, boil-covered orcs roam a vast plateau known as the Pocked Plains, fighting, feuding, and forever locked in a war without end for dominance of the region. The Pocked Plains are said to roil night and day with the gride of skirmish and the fetid laughter of feuding orcs. Though it hasn't always been such, the great archives all note that before the 8th era of Clouds and Shame and the rise of the Technasti, the plateau was a mixed species region, agrarian, pastoral, and peaceful. The fires of Technasti industry and the industrialization of the area are firmly blamed for the corruption of not only the Pocked Plains, but NARRATION as a whole. Unchecked heavy mining and processing by the Technasti of green residuum, technetium, along with other toxic materials such as arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, chromium, and beryllium, poisoned the land and created an ecological horror that has lasted to the current era. The high elevation and topography acted as a catch basin for the aerial pollutants emitted from the lowlands. It quickly killed off or mutated all life of the once verdant and green highlands. The region's hardy orcs were once an integral and major cultural contributing force of the many peoples of the land, but grew to become dominant tyrannical oppressors, and as their degradation progressed, quickly became the sole sentient, though some would argue semi- or even non-sentient, scourge of the plains. Over the era's scions of the region claim the minds of these twisted creatures are near unmappable, unknowable swirls of chaos. Violent lusts, horrid rage, and paranoid conspiracy whirl in their degraded psyche. It is said that the physical audible cackle, which is indicative of all members of the subspecies, is also ever present in both the people's conscious and subconscious minds. They have no recognized societies, no art, and no written or single codified spoken regional language. It should be noted that if they are hungry, cackling mass orcs are not above cannibalism, though it is not a regular occurrence given sufficient alternative sources of nourishment. With the exception of battle, the orcs of the cackling mass rarely collect in groups larger than a few dozen. They live for the thrill of battle, pillaging, and tyranny. Should they be unable to participate in conflict with rival groups, they will settle for battle amongst their allies. They are a pure example of a craterocracy, only the mighty rule, and only for as long as they are the strongest. The Cackling Mass, orcish subspecies, is an interesting one. They are much larger than common orcs and are occasionally mistaken for mutated ogres. There is very little physical difference between males and female members of the species. Keeping it to the basics, both members of the species have large phalluses in relation to their body sizes. The males have proportionally large testicles, and the females have a vulva and vagina in addition to their impressive members. This is where the external differences end. Both sexes are large, hulking creatures with little regard for life or feelings. Along with their lust for ultraviolence comes an equally voracious and basal need to procreate. And that they do. I'll spare you the gory and unseemly details, but suffice to say, if not for their primary proclivity for war, they would easily overpopulate the planet. Pregnant cackling orcs are easily identified by what is known as the belly laugh, the sound of the unborn, typically triplets, quadruplets, or occasionally more within the womb. The fetuses grow into viable, near self-sustaining creatures the size of a 6-year-old human child within 2 to 3 weeks of conception. Birth occurs within 4 to 6 weeks from conception and is a gruesome affair, typically occurring in one of 3 ways. Again, I will spare you the indecorous detail, but they are as follows. Firstly, mothers often drive the children from their body due to annoyance or pure hatred. Secondly, often another orc decides to extract the children for reasons only that orc knows. Lastly, and possibly most gruesome, the children fight their way out. This is a complicated situation with many variables. For example, as I had previously noted, the fetuses become near self-sustaining by 2 to 3 weeks. Often due to their natures, it is not uncommon for expectant mothers to die in combat. As a point of note, I hesitate to call them mothers for reasons that will become clear, but I digress. In the event of the death of their gestator, if the fetuses are far enough along in development, they will sustain themselves, surviving on each other, in a process known as a T.T.R.P.G. This generally results in only one child surviving. They may also sustain themselves on the remains of their host mother. Or lastly, they may survive on the remains of the insemination process. Now, I may or may not elaborate on this last form of sustenance another time, as it is a somewhat gruesome level of detail. A typical healthy cackling orc is the size of a full-grown human male at birth. They are always immediately disowned by their birthing parent and any associated adults. In fact, less than 50% of newly born cackling orcs survive their first hour of life outside of the womb. The term "hit the ground running" definitely should apply to all cackling newborns. Though due to their nature, few do. Often these fodder, as they are known, stand and attempt to fight either their womb mates or their mother and any nearby orcs. This horrific circle of life can happen again and again with this orcish subspecies. Females are able to begin development of new fetuses within hours of giving birth. Further, all fodder are born sexually mature. Of the other horrors of the plateau, well, I will leave those for another time, and let the nightmare of the cackling mass stand as admonitory enough. Stay away from the pocked plains. Pray you never see the cracked smile or hear the grinding chortle of the region's orcs. That is all for this time. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for future lore guides, and thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.